Welcome to the Hymn of Ash and Echo. This is the Collapse Dead Run, a full zombie survival audiobook. Part 2, Dead Run Part 1 is linked in the description and pinned comment below. Before we begin, a quick note. By decree of Adam, these stories are written by me, but for now they're narrated with AI while I continue honing my voice acting craft. Thank you for your patience. I'll earn the mic soon enough. Now, the run continues. Chapter 4. A Respite. Larry pushed them harder, all but sprinting from cover to cover, now that the streets had been emptied, or he assumed them to be, unless there was another deaf zombie around, or some other migrated following the noise, and then stopped after the call ended. But, well, it was the risk he would take if it meant putting some distance between them and that ungodly horde their scuffle created, and get him closer to Mighty. They slowed, sweat pouring down his face as he leaned out to study Madison Avenue. The left side and the rest of 58th Street seemed clear, but the view to the right side, the side they needed, was blocked by a construction site. Could we use that? Larry asked himself, urging the rest to cross the street. Barry took point, and only then did Larry realize that the man's jacket had been ripped, particularly around his left shoulder. When did that happen? Larry thought, following them. During the fight? He shook his head. It didn't matter. He saw no blood, so it was safe to assume the nails didn't get through. He needed to stay focused on the task at hand, and that was reaching the old restaurant. That left him with the same question again. To go through the construction site or not? It would offer a good hiding place for a good chunk of the way, blocking the view from at least one side, but it would corner them, limiting their mobility. And not to mention that the store's glass offered no protection against any zombies that might be inside. Plus, the lights were on. So were the ones in the stores across the street. No matter which way they went, Larry and his crew would be glowing targets. Shit, Larry breathed, realizing there was only one option left, running down the middle of Madison Avenue. Stay in bus lane, Larry mouthed, pointing at the red-striped lane labeled bus only. Not behind? Anna asked. Larry shook his head, retaining the point. They crouch-ran across the bus lane, heads turning left and right, peering behind every parked or wrecked car, and saw nothing. How long will our luck hold? Larry thought, his hands sweating on his spear as he craned forward, checking the intersection and listening to the distant moans, louder now that they were parallel to the car pileup and the horde around it. He turned right, peering into the night, and saw them. At least 9 zombies, rocking and moaning. Staying close to the hubbub, Barry jabbed his ribs and pointed. Look, he mouthed. Larry followed his finger, which pointed at the small food and coffee vendor on the corner. The neon sign flickered. Wrap, salad, donuts, and more. His stomach growled, reminding him that his last meal was hours away and could be hours yet. The pictures of donuts, toasts, and burgers plastered over the little red cart didn't help. We should eat, Barry mouthed, biting the air for emphasis. Take now, Larry mouthed. Eat later. Fine, Barry mouthed back, walking toward it. Larry grabbed his arm. The man turned his head, eyes bulging. Larry tapped his chest. I'll go. And Anna and Tina, Larry tapped their half-empty bags with his spear. All go? Barry asked. Larry shook his head. You take the rest and look. He pointed toward Madison Avenue. Barry shook his head, pointing at the vendor. More food, he mouthed. Less weight. Larry stared at him for a moment, thinking. Barry had a point. They could take more and spread it out among more people. No one would be bogged down. Okay, he mouthed at Barry. But I go first. Take 2 first. Barry nodded at Anna and Tina, pointing at the little vendor. Larry took point, and the women followed as he circled it, slow and careful, peering through the cracked door. Nobody was inside, and the front flap seemed to be down. Larry gestured for the two to fan out as he crept closer to the door, listening. Distant moans filled the night, but nothing else. His hands sweating, his breath rugged, and his pulse raging in his chest as he grabbed the little metal door handle. He pushed it open and jumped back, spear raised, ready to fight. But again, nothing. How lucky can we be? Larry thought, nodding at the two. Anna nodded back, but Tina stared blankly at him. Larry gestured for her to go inside, but Tina stood unmoving, eyes wide and blank. Did fear make her freeze? Clamp up? Anna grabbed her arm, whispering something, and Tina finally nodded. Both of them went inside, leaving Larry to watch over a gigantic street that ended in a horde of zombies. Maybe I should move to cover, he thought, his eyes drawn by the moaning mass again. Yeah, he breathed, taking cover behind the vendor and checking the street. Barry and the rest joined him, most looking around, taking the street in. All but Janet, the woman, stared at the floor. Anna and Tina stepped out, holding filled rucksacks. Next, she gestured to the vendor, and Barry and Greg went in. Larry saw it again. Barry's jacket had been ripped around the shoulder blades. Nail-like tears in the man's jacket, and possibly his shirt. Did the zombie do that? Larry thought back to the man's scuffle. Did the zombie grab Barry's shoulders? Yes, it did. The man and his ripped jacket disappeared inside, and Larry turned his attention back to the group. The same scene awaited him. Everybody but Janet checking the street out. She stared at the ground, her hands trembling on her wooden club. Actually, it was a broken broom handle, taped to two other broken pieces to have a tipped end. Not the best weapon they had, but well, they had what they had. Larry squeezed Janet's shoulder, and she shook herself. She turned to him. "You and Marty next," he mouthed, enunciating the words so she would understand. She nodded and followed Marty inside as soon as Barry and Greg exited. "Should we scout?" Barry asked, putting his rucksack back on. "What?" Larry mouthed back. Ahead, the man made a sweeping gesture. "Look." Barry tapped his eye, repeating the gesture. Larry nodded, pointing at himself. "I go in," he mouthed. "You go look." "All of us?" Barry asked. "Your choice." Barry nodded. Larry nodded, waiting with his heart in his ears for the two to finish. He hoped Janet didn't freeze again, or Tina for that matter. Why did she freeze? He asked himself, looking at the woman. She had been fine with antagonizing zombies through a glass door, and she seemed fine up until the moment she didn't. Did the horde scare her that much? Larry asked himself and almost laughed. Of course they did. They scared the living shit out of him too. But he tried to keep a level head, tried to think about the road ahead, about Mighty, and it worked for the most part. Marty and Janet exited the vendor, and Larry went in last. Leah had no bag to put any food in, and eating now was not an option. So he left her behind amongst the others. The choice of remaining food was not the best. 2 jam donuts, some bagels, a loaf of bread, and a half-eaten sandwich. Larry stuffed it all, except for the sandwich, into his bag and looked around, opening drawers, checking cupboards, and found nothing. Well, nothing edible, until he checked the freezer unit. 3 packs of frozen burger patties, 6 hot dog packs, 2 frozen fish fillets, frozen chicken in a bag, and at least 5 pounds of ground beef. His stomach roared in excitement, even though he had no way of preparing the food. Not now, at least. Should I risk it? Larry weighed his options to be encumbered, but have a generous, hot, and filling meal at some point, or to leave it there. Take only the hot dogs and maybe patties. Fuck it, he thought, grabbing all of the frozen meat. Save the chicken. Larry put his rucksack back on, leaving the cart with a smile on his face and an overly packed bag on his shoulder. Sitting heavily on his back weight felt like a win in the face of the constant moans. Barry and the rest were a bit further away, fanned out, checking the street ahead. Barry and Greg had point, with Anna, Janet, Tina, and Leah behind them. Marty brought up the rear, giving him all clear sign. Good, Larry thought, rushing toward them. If slow and deliberate tiptoeing behind cover could be considered rushing, the rest didn't think so. Marty gestured for him to hurry, as if ever-present moans didn't surround them, and they hadn't just barely outmaneuvered a gigantic horde less than 20 minutes ago. Are they getting restless? Larry asked himself, gesturing for the group to relax as Anna led her little squad out of the cover and across the street toward Barry and Greg. A growl broke the night. Larry stopped, blood freezing in his veins, eyes scanning the street around him. But he saw nothing. Barry's head turned left and right, urging them to hurry up. Marty rushed out of the cover, beelining straight towards Barry and the rest. The man sure as hell didn't tiptoe, and Larry didn't blame him. He sped up his pace, still using parked cars as cover and scanning the street. He never saw it coming. Neither did Marty, as a large male zombie tackled the man, growling and snarling as the two hit the ground and rolled. It ended atop Marty, nails reaching for his neck, but the man fought back, never yielding or screaming, just grunting as he tried and failed to batter the thing away. Larry sprinted. He didn't think about the loud steps he would make, nor the heavy bag on his shoulders. The only thing on his mind was Marty. The man struggled to push the zombie's head away. Teeth closing in, Larry could see it even from behind. The way its back bowed, its neck craned. The zombie was going for his face. Larry jumped on its back, stuffing his magazine-wrapped forearm into its jaws. Crushing pain exploded in his arm, a white-hot spike that made his vision blur. He leaned back, using all his weight to peel it away from Marty. The stench of rot filled his nose as he wrestled the thing away. Larry staggered, trying to grab his screwdriver, the thing still in his arms, flailing and snarling, kicking and punching. Anna was there in a second. Her screwdriver punched through the thing's skull. The zombie went rigid in his arms. All the flailing mass suddenly went still and dropped down, pulling Larry with it. Larry's knees hit the ground hard, and the zombie's jaw loosened. Larry slowly, deliberately removed his hand from his mouth, so the magazine and tape wouldn't rip on the teeth. Now that it was dead, Barry put a hand on his shoulder as Greg helped Marty up. "You good?" Barry mouthed. Larry nodded, checking his aching forearm. The magazine held. "Thank God," he breathed, letting himself sit on his haunches, the dead thing still leaning on him. "Off me," he mouthed. Barry, Leah, and Anna moved the damned thing off him, helping him stand. "Thank you," Marty mouthed. Larry waved the man away, looking at the dead zombie. Why didn't it react to the phone call? Were they getting too far away? But no, then there would have been more than one, grouped together, drawn in by their own shuffling steps and moans. Barry pushed him to get his attention. "We need to move," he mouthed. Larry nodded, returning his attention to the thing. Why didn't it react to the noise? Why didn't the first, back when Tim bumped the car? In his mind's eye, he saw Tim get swarmed and disappear beneath a mass of growling and bloody zombies. Could they be deaf? Larry asked himself. Anna grabbed his shoulder, gesturing for him to move. Larry nodded again, not taking his eyes off the dead thing. She tugged his shoulder again, as moans filled the night. Larry pushed her hand away, crouching down, patting the zombie's pockets. In its back pocket, he found its wallet, and in it a Texas driver's license. Larry flipped it around and found the answer to his question. Code 5 printed on the back, with a simple description. Deaf. Good to know. Larry pocketed the license and moved to follow the rest, toward their first resting spot. Larry caught up to them, passing them, and retook the point. Barry again on his left side as they crouched at an intersection. No zombies around, and they were only 2 blocks away from the restaurant. 2 blocks away from a meal and a break. But his heart didn't feel it. It beat fast and loud as the adrenaline of the fight left him. Larry pushed it down, rushing over the open street, eyes darting around, seeing nothing but dead bodies littering the street. They reached a parked car and crouched down, listening to the moans filling the night. No more growls or snarls or running steps, but he heard bumps again. There were zombies nearby, more than one. Their luck had to run out eventually. He tapped his ear, pointing into the night. "Bumps?" Anna asked. Larry nodded, gesturing for them to be watchful and careful. Barry made a face, lips turning down and eyebrows raised. "What?" Larry mouthed. "We are careful," Barry mouthed. Larry shook his head at the man and continued on, his heart still pumping like mad, his arm still aching. Should have used the left hand, he thought, flexing his right hand on his spear. Pain shot up it like dozen tiny needles. Next time, he thought, slowing at an intersection, and there they were, 4 zombies to their left, shambling and moaning as they bumped into each other and the parked cars, never straying too far from one another. Barely 10 feet from the corner, Larry used for cover. Around, Larry gestured to the other side of the street. Barry gave him a thumbs up and took the point. Larry took the man's left, facing the rest of the intersection as they rushed over. He saw 2 zombies on the right side of Madison Avenue. On their side, shit, he thought, crouching beside Barry and looking down the 60th Street. No zombies in that direction, but that wasn't surprising. Their little scuffle and the phone call took place on Park Avenue, drawing all the zombies from the surrounding streets. Larry turned back to grinning Barry. "What?" he mouthed. Barry mimed stabbing the air. Larry shook his head, gesturing for them to go around the zombies. "No fun," Barry mouthed. "Park is left." Larry pointed toward it. "And rest." "No fun," Barry repeated, letting Larry take the point. They crossed the intersection, eyes glued to the 4 zombies on the 60th Street. But they didn't turn, just shambling and rocking back and forth, unable to stand still, always moving. Larry didn't know why, and he frankly didn't care. All he cared about was getting home and taking a moment to breathe. He reached the first parked car and immediately changed directions, crossing the large avenue, using the abandoned cars as cover. The rest followed, as he led them in a large circle around the 2 shambling zombies, only to run into a dead one, its skull crushed in. Larry slowed, looking at the parked and abandoned cars. There he saw them, 3 men, armed with pipes and knives, studying the 2 shambling undead. How did they kill the 3rd one without drawing their attention? Larry asked himself, watching them creep forward and fan out. Why were they attacking? Larry's eyes widened and his stomach dropped as he watched them close in. He stood there, unsure of what to do, watching the 3 morons stand and swing. Just simple pipes, nothing taped to them for extra lethality, just basic melee weapons like his wrench. And like his wrench, they needed more than 1 hit to get the job done. But the 3 seemed to have it all planned out. The 2 on the right engaged one, with a vicious blow to the head, and the one on the left pushed the 2nd zombie away, allowing them time to deal with the first. The only problem? The 2nd guy on the right missed, and Larry could do nothing but watch as the 2nd zombie rushed in, rejoining the fray. "Move," he mouthed, grabbing Tina's arm and pushing her ahead. "Far away," he mouthed, as he and Greg pulled the frozen Janet along. The whole group rushed away, all but Barry, who lagged behind, watching with glinting eyes as 2 more men emerged from the darkness. Larry turned, grabbed the man, and pulled him along. He didn't fight back, eyes glued to the fight behind them. Growls tore through the night, and another zombie came rushing in. Then another. Larry turned to see 3 more people rushing into the street. The scuffle turned into a fight. knives, hammers, and pipes against claws and teeth. He didn't care who won. He only cared about the mounting growls. At least 3 more in the distance, far away from them and their path. Fools, Larry thought, reaching the corner and looking up the 61st Street. At their designated resting spot, and the dozen zombies shambling around it. Shit, he thought, turning back. The 6 zombies from the 60th Street joined the melee, as well as 3 more from somewhere else. 2 men managed to climb atop a truck, using the pipes as polearms, smashing heads as their friends fought for their lives. Fuck, he thought, his mind racing. What to do? Where to next? Falling back wasn't an option, not with the chaos those idiots brought. Why did they engage? Larry asked himself, watching the men fight for their lives. A child crawled from underneath the truck and ran off. Into the night, into the growls. Move, he told himself. Rushing across the intersection, hiding behind abandoned cars, watching both the front and the back. Eyes darting to their left, to the massive horde. Luckily, their moans, shambles, and bumps were too loud for them to hear the scuffle. Fuck, Barry breathed in his ear, and Larry turned, ready to smack the man for speaking. But he froze. One of the men on the truck held a gun, pointing at a zombie, fingers straining on the trigger. The muzzle flashed. The gun roared. The sound tore through the night, echoing around them and filling their ears. Fuck! Larry slowly turned to the dozen sprinting zombies, growling and snarling as they flew through the street, swinging around abandoned cars like a tidal wave. Larry crouched down, watching the mass move, hardly believing his eyes. Anna poked his ribs, and he shook himself, looking at her. She urged them to take Madison Avenue, to get away. But his mind found a better solution. Larry pointed up the street, toward the park, toward their designated resting spot, and away from the action. Into the incoming horde, rushing out of the park and down the street. Her eyes grew wide, head shaking. Larry grabbed her shoulder, nodding as the first wave of zombies rushed past their hiding spot. Another gunshot, then another tore the night. Larry pushed on behind the parked and abandoned cars. An ever-growing horde rushed past them. Zombies bumped into the cars they used as cover. They sprinted, growled, and snarled as they rushed their prey down. A man screamed, and the undead things howled like beasts, trampling each other to reach their prey. Larry didn't waver, nor did he stop. And good that he didn't. Another mass of zombies rushed over Madison Avenue, right around the cars they used as a hiding spot. A snarl rose over the growls. Then a shape tumbled across a car hood. A zombie landed hard in front of Janet. She froze, eyes wide, mouth open. A scream rose in her throat, sharp and thin. Larry's heart dropped. He couldn't move. Too far, too slow. Marty tackled Janet down, clamping a hand over her mouth. The sound still leaked out. Barry's spear flashed. The screwdrivers punched through the skull. 2 nearby zombies stopped, heads turning, eyes locked on them. Another zombie rushed between the cars, straight at Tina. The woman stood there, eyes wide and terrified. Leah pushed her aside. Greg's hammer crushed the thing's skull, the curved edge breaking bone with ease. More guns and screams echoed as Larry and Anna took the third one down. She tripped it, and he killed it, leaving them exposed to the rushing horde. Down, Larry mouthed, pointing down and hoping, praying, no others had seen them. A child screamed in the distance. Larry and his people crouched and waited, ready to spring up at the moment's notice. But the others haven't seen them, too blinded by their frenzy. Lucky, Larry thought, pointing forward. Move. Barry was first to do so, winking as he ran past. The others followed more sluggishly. They reached 2 parked trucks, right across the restaurant. Larry now at the rear, next to Tina and Leah. Both women were pale and breathless, but alive. He clapped Leah's shoulder, nodding and smiling. She didn't even try smiling back, her whole body shaking from fear and adrenaline. Me too, he thought, eyeing the snarling mass rushing past them. More screams filled the night as the wave of zombies turned into a trickle. More gunshots tore through the night as the last two zombies rushed past them. Larry waited for a beat longer, eyes glued to the park and Fifth Avenue, but nothing else came at them, or well at the sound the idiots made. Gone, Barry mouthed, pointing at the empty street. Larry nodded and rushed over the street, head turning left and right, watching for stragglers. There were none. In fact, as he checked the corner of Fifth Avenue, he realized there were no zombies left on the street. None close by anyhow. Larry gestured for the rest to follow as he slowly opened the glass door of the abandoned restaurant. Entering an extravagantly decorated room, despite it being under construction. The rest followed him as he took the scene in, listening for moans and growls. But there were none. Barry passed him, a pack of smokes in his hands. "You want one?" the man whispered. "Let's wash up first," Larry said, finally feeling his heart ease. Chapter 5. Best of Times, Worst of Zombies. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, said Dickens once upon a time, long, long ago. But Larry doubted the man imagined that the worst in that sentence would ever apply to undead monsters roaming New York City, or that the best of times would be clean, cold water splashing his face, or that there could ever be a time when clean water would be at everyone's fingertips, or that would ever be such a thing as a New York. When did Dickens die? Larry thought, feeling cold droplets run down his chest. Why am I thinking about that? Larry lifted his trembling hands to his face, looking at the blisters forming, looking at the blood stuck beneath his fingernails. The opening of A Tale of Two Cities still replaying in his mind, comparing his day to the words of a book he hated. The ages of wisdom and foolishness now represent his cell phone plan and the idiotic decision to stuff an arm into a zombie's mouth. The epochs of belief and incredulity now represent his determination to get mighty and their unbelievable situation zombies in NYC. Why? He asked himself again, trying and failing to clean his fingernails. You good? Barry leaned into the bathroom. Larry nodded, feeling a strange sense of dread at the man's volume. What are you thinking about? Honestly? Larry asked, struggling not to whisper. Barry nodded, yet another cigarette in his mouth. You want one? A Tale of Two Cities, Larry said, nodding. Barry snorted, smoke escaping his lips. Larry lit the cigarette. The buzz filled his head, smoothing away the tremors. You are one strange man, Barry said. It was Larry's turn to snort. You are the one to speak. Barry grinned like a madman and left, leaving Larry alone in the dark. And the opening passage returned to him, now with the seasons of light and darkness representing Barry and him. But which is which? Larry puffed on the smoke, red glow illuminating the dark bathroom. It doesn't matter, he muttered to himself, thoughts turning to mighty. Just a little longer, he whispered, and left the bathroom to find the rest of his group occupying one of the covered tables, backs bowed and tense, eyes tired and jaws clenched, spears, knives, and hammers resting just within reach. Even now they were too wary to rest, all but one man. Barry, he lay on his back in the middle of the room, a cigarette illuminating his closed eyes, more relaxed now than he had ever been. Apocalypse suited him, and that made Larry even more nervous. Okay, people, Larry said, sitting next to Anna. We need to eat and rest before... No, Greg snapped, angry eyes turning to Larry. You need to do something about them. What? Larry blinked, turning to Anna. Tina and Janet, she explained. Or so she thought. He still had no clue what the man meant. Because you saw them back there, Anna said. Not just that, Greg said. They almost screamed. They almost got us all killed. Yeah, that was stupid, Leah agreed. It's an understandable impulse, Larry said. But that was a weak argument, and they all knew it. But it was the only one he had. Look, I agree with you. But we need to stay calm and deal with it rationally. He struggled to find other words. They almost got us killed, Greg repeated. So did I, Larry said. Multiple times, but you rescued Marty and Leah and Barry and them. The man all but growled. They did nothing but stand. Don't be a jerk, Anna said. Larry is right. They were just scared. We all are, Marty muttered. That's how I knew she would scream. Because I wanted to, he swallowed. When the thing was on me, all I wanted to do was scream. But you didn't, Greg said. That's the point. You fought silently. I did, yes, but they didn't, Greg said. And someone else had to save them. Marty too, Janet muttered. And Leah. True, but Leah found a hiding spot and, Larry began, trying and failing to turn the argument into something productive. It's not the same, and you know it. Both of you stood there, did nothing, and next time it could kill us. Greg crossed his arms. Are you saying we are dead weight? Tina snapped. No, Larry responded before Greg could. He is just scared and worried. Yes, I am, the man said. And now we have to share food. Ooh, Barry jumped up, glowing cigarette still in his mouth as he scratched his armpit and head, hopping on one foot. He repeated, jumping to his other foot. All turned to stare at the man monkeying around. What the hell? Larry blinked, watching as Barry changed hands, still hooting. The fuck are you doing? Greg asked, confusion replacing the anger in his tone. Oh, Larry realized what Barry did. This man. He is speaking the universal male language, he smiled. Bingo, Barry grinned back at them, finally stopping his charade. Can we eat now? Yes, please, Anna said, opening her backpack. I grabbed bagels and sandwiches. I got mostly sweets, Janet muttered, dumping the contents of her bag on the table. A dozen donuts seemed like a gold mine. So did the cherry bagels and something Larry didn't recognize. It looked like a pretzel, but was covered in chocolate. The rest followed, emptying their bags on the table. Breads of different varieties, fresh and canned vegetables, 3 types of sausage, and 2 kinds of cheese made his stomach grumble. But his bag made everyone's eyes grow wide. Frozen meats and hot dog packs seemed like a godsend. Marty licked his lips. Greg grabbed the hamburger patties, looking at them as if they were his children. Can we make those? Tina asked, holding the fish fillets in her hand. Sure we can. Barry snatched the fish out of her hand. We are in a restaurant, genius. The man looked at Larry with the can you believe this look. But the power is off, Leah said. I doubt it, Larry said. There was water, and look at the power tools around us. But why were the lights out? Janet asked. Probably because the outbreak happened after 3. Who cares? Barry said. Let's make us some dinner. As long as Barry is not the one cooking, Leah said, and everyone stood. Guys, stop, Larry said. Let's be smart. Who knows when we will get another chance to loot a vendor? Meaning what? Marty asked. Meaning we should leave the hot dogs and ground beef on the side, as well as canned goods. And the sausages and cheese for that matter. All those things can last. Janet and Tina will make us dinner. Use the fish, some burger patties, and fresh vegetables. Okay, and the rest? Anna asked. That we will ration for later. No, I meant the rest of us, she clarified. Oh, sorry, Larry said. Greg and Marty will keep Tina and Janet safe. I will fix Barry's jacket and you 2 can take a break. We need to do those in shifts. I would rather see if there is a bag here I could use, Leah said. You should, Barry nodded, but not alone. I'll come with you, Anna said. Thanks, Leah smiled. Good. You all know what to do if shit hits the fan, Larry said. Don't scream, Barry grinned, taking his jacket off. Larry wanted to slap the man, but held back, eyeing the rest of them, particularly Greg. The man had the wherewithal to blush and look down. Sorry, he muttered. We are sorry too. Janet put a hand on his shoulder, and Greg placed his hand on hers. Larry's eyebrows rose, eyes scanning the group. Only Anna had noticed. Their eyes met, and she smiled. Was your other grandma a seamstress? Barry asked. What? Larry turned to the man, only to see Barry stuffing his face with a donut. Don't be a dick. Larry grabbed what little of the donut was left, or tried to. Barry stuffed it into his mouth, grinning like a fool, jam running down his cheek. One grandma was a nurse, Barry said around the mouthful. Larry blinked at the man, then shook his head. Dude, you baffle me. Larry sat in the dark restaurant looking at Barry's back. The nails ripped through the jacket, but not the shirt underneath. Lucky, he thought, watching the tears and holes in the man's jacket. You stuffed your hand into its mouth, right? Larry asked, studying the man's shoulder blades. Both left and right were torn, almost mirroring each other. Yeah, why? How did it grab you? I don't know, Barry shrugged. Stand up, Larry said, offering Barry a hand. The man didn't take it, no. He placed another cigarette into Larry's hand. Not now, Larry said, gesturing for the man to hurry up. Barry made a face and stood up. Come at me slowly, Larry said, and I will try to stop. Barry didn't let him finish, nor did he approach slowly. The man pounced. Larry barely had enough time to react. His forearm met Barry's chin, and the man instinctively grabbed for Larry's shoulders. Both of them. Fuck! Barry's eyes went wide, a grin splitting his face. Good thing you are impulsive, Larry said. I'll say, but why? Both men snorted. Let's do it the other way. They repeated the experiment, with Larry now being the zombie, and his hands ended on the man's shoulder blades. We will need a lot more magazines, Barry muttered. Larry nodded, extending his hand. Barry grinned, putting a cigarette into it. Larry sank back into the chair, smoke curling from his lips, Dickens's words still rattling in his skull. What are you thinking about? Barry asked. Dickens. Barry squinted. What? Nothing. Larry watched the smoke curl and twist in the darkness. We will need to fix your jacket, then modify the rest. We don't have enough magazines or tape. We will have to find some more, or figure out another way to keep us from getting chewed on. Fog everywhere, Barry said, sitting down. Fog up the river, where it flows among green eights and meadows. Fog down the river, where it rolls defiled among the tiers of shipping and the waterside pollutions of a great and dirty city. Bleak House? Larry blinked, taking the duct tape out. What were you thinking of, Nicholas Nickleby? Barry asked. At a time like this, be real, man. It's either Bleak House, the Pickwick Papers, or Great Expectations. A tale of two cities, actually, Larry said, taping up the tears and holes. Basic bitch you is, Barry chuckled. Thank you. Larry taped another strand. You never struck me as a literary type. Barry's head jerked around, eyes narrowed. What? I have a master's in English Lit. You do? Larry asked. Yeah, I do. Barry's face darkened. You didn't know? No, how should I? We talked about it like 2 years ago. Larry blinked. How else do I know you got an MBA? Stalking? Larry said, and Barry laughed. You are a dick. No, Larry thought, chuckling nervously. You just know me a lot better than I know you. You know, Great Expectations always reminded me of my very first time. What did you fall in love with, a cold-hearted Estella? Nah, Miss Havisham. Dude, what? Experience matters at a young age. And besides, the man turned, a menacing grin on his face. Her throat was warm. Larry stared at the man, unable to comprehend what he had just said. It was truly the best of times, Barry said, nodding at the memories. Take your jacket off and go find some magazines and more tape, Larry said. "Oh, come on, don't be sensitive," Barry said. "I'm sure you had your fair share of experiences with older women." "Yeah, I did. With 25, not at what, 19? 15, the man winked, his smile growing wider. 15? How old was the Miss Havisham? You know what? I don't want to know. There are some things you just... Larry trailed off, shaking his head. 15, Christ, dude. In her 50s. But a former volleyball play, that's enough, Larry said, taking the man's jacket off. I'll figure out a way to fix this and reinforce it. Find us what we need, and check on the rest. Aye, boss, Barry Mock saluted and was off, striding nonchalantly through a dark restaurant in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. That man, Larry thought, smoke escaping his nose. Definitely the darkness, he thought, spreading the jacket flat, fingers tracing the taped tears. What's with me and Dickens suddenly? Larry muttered, looking at the duct-taped shoulder blades. What was the best way to do it? Tape the magazines to the spots? No, the zombies could rip them off. That would defeat the purpose. Maybe, he muttered, turning the jacket inside out. Yes, that could work, he thought, placing a magazine over the ripped spot. It couldn't be torn off. Plus, Barry's back and rucksack would help hold it in place. But would it be comfortable? Larry asked himself, then almost slapped himself. Who gives a shit if it was comfortable or not? It needed to stop the nails and save lives. Dumbass. He cussed himself out, taping paper to the cloth, testing the weight. Cumbersome and unpleasant, but effective. Like Barry, he snorted at his dumb thoughts, grabbing another magazine. There was a light tap at the covered window. Larry froze, eyes searching the darkness. Another tap. He grabbed his spear, turning to call out to the others. But no, if it were a zombie, his call would aggravate it. But he couldn't just leave it be, or leave. What if it broke in? What if the horde migrated back? Another tap. Check first. Larry pushed himself to move, plan accordingly. He glanced over his shoulder, hoping that the others would return. But they didn't, and he couldn't go get them. Larry crouched, prowling forward, eyes and ears straining. Another tap, then another. Larry stopped by the white sheet, listening to the thing tap away. Semi-regularly, with single and multiple taps. Like the wind, Larry squatted, moving the sheet out of the way. Barely half an inch. Just enough for him to peek through. A thin strand of wire danced in the wind, tapping against the window as the gusts moved it. Jesus, Larry sighed, eyes scanning the street outside. Still no zombies. Good, he thought, letting the sheet curtain fall and turning around. A woman stood behind him. Larry jerked back. His spear flashed up. Anna chuckled. Damn, you scared the life out of me, he muttered, lowering the spear. You move like a rabbit. Ha ha. He mock laughed, shivers running down his spine. Did you find a bag for Leia? 3, actually, and more tools and weapons. Plus, duct tape and magazines. Lucky, he muttered. Not really, she said, lifting a magazine up. Men. Larry squinted in the darkness, unable to see what it was. Oh, too dark, she muttered, handing it over. Larry took the Playboy magazine and almost laughed. Men indeed. We all got phones, this is just weird. I bet Barry was happy. Leah found his giddiness hilarious, Anna said, shaking her head. That man confuses me. Me too, Larry muttered. Tina says the kitchen works perfectly. Larry nodded, moving back to his work desk. You should give me your jacket so I can reinforce it. You should pay me dinner first. We are at a fancy restaurant, Larry smiled. And I even brought my own ingredients and chefs. Oh? You think that's enough for me to undress for you? In this day and age? Woman that should make you want to marry me. He smiled, and she chuckled. But let's start with jackets first. Let's, she smiled, and his heart skipped a beat. Larry and Anna spread their jackets on the tables, reinforcing them with magazines and duct tape, talking and laughing about his past, about hers, about the absurdity of the date they were on, about how, even though Greg was wrong in his approach, both actually agreed with him. Then it happened. In the middle of the conversation, she laughed, saying something about 15 zombie waiters, but all he heard was Barry's quote-unquote joke, the bravado in his voice, the pride the man felt. But Larry saw it just for an instant. Shame, or pain, or anger, something so deeply rooted and masked that he could barely put his finger on it. Something so fundamental to the man's character that Barry couldn't even comprehend it, and Larry hated that he noticed it. Because now he couldn't unsee it, couldn't unknow it. He had to deal with it. "Hey," Anna asked, "did I say something wrong?" "No, sorry, just..." Larry trailed off, shaking his head. "What then?" Her face twisted from a joyful smile to a concerned frown. "Something Barry said." Larry rubbed his face. "I have a hard time processing it." And as if summoned by the mere mention of his name, Barry waltzed into the dining room, hands filled with tools, weapons, and jackets. Leah walking beside him, both laughing at something. "I got the cooks and bodyguards too." He smiled as if it were a joke. "Good thinking," Larry said, watching the man's face, looking for that glimpse again. But it was gone, buried deep under a mountain of craziness and cope. "Just doing what my team lead taught me," he laughed, dropping his load on the adjacent table as if their conversation hadn't even happened. "What?" Barry asked. "Nothing, just..." Larry didn't know how to broach the subject, or even if he should. This man, he thought, suddenly angry at Barry for sharing, suddenly wishing the man would just monkey away to a far corner of the dark restaurant. "Just referring to me as team lead now? You haven't done so ever. But now?" Barry's smile turned wicked. "What?" Anna asked. "Nothing other than he is lying," Barry said. "I am?" "Yes," Barry nodded, the smile turning philosophical. 3 years ago, when the boss bitch tried to fire me, I called you the best team lead ever." Larry blinked, obviously remembering that day very differently from Barry. Besides that, what was the point of bringing that up now? Years later? "Oh, I remember that," Leah said. "What did you do? Steal from the company or something like that?" "He allegedly stole 2 company laptops and 6 phones. But there was no evidence," Larry said. "And he was singled out because, well, Barry..." He pointed at the man. "Barry is me." Barry beamed with pride. "And you told that stuck-up ass, if you fire him, I'm quitting too." "I did," Larry nodded, "because I didn't want work for a company that would go that far." "Yeah, fucking right," Barry said. "Best friend and best team lead ever. And that's what I told you then, and that's what I tell you now. And you know the best part?" "Do I want to know?" Larry asked, and Anna smiled. "You never asked if I did it." "Because you didn't?" Larry asked. "Oh, I did." Barry smiled like a schoolboy. "But it was 6 laptops in total and almost 20 phones." Larry leaned on the table, rubbing his face, his head a jumbled mess. How in the hell should he react to that story, now that he knows Barry actually stole? Why did he bring it up now, after all the shit he said before? Was Barry fucking with him? It would be in his character. Anna placed a hand on his thigh and squeezed. Larry looked at her fingers on his thigh, her long and delicate fingers. The hand that forced him to help Stephen, forced him to think about more than just himself and Mighty. It was the hand that saved Leah, however indirectly, and Tina through that. And maybe all of us, he thought, looking up at her concerned face. And he smiled. Not a crazy grin he shared with Barry, or the flutters they shared before, but a genuine, grateful smile for her presence. And she smiled back, the same smile he gave her, only tinged with something more. Concern? Confusion? He couldn't tell. But it didn't matter. Not really. He now knew what he needed to do. "Thank you," he whispered. Leah, we should get back to it, Barry said, his voice tinged with a smile. Give them some privacy. Larry looked at the man's smiling face. The man seemed happy. Not as a normal person would. His eyes still had a mad shine to them, but they were softer than they ever were. Leah, give Barry and me a moment. Larry pushed himself up. Sure, I'll check on dinner. You good? Barry asked, pulling out the smokes. Yeah, I'm good. Larry crossed the room in 3 strides. Barry's smile turned to a grin, offering him the cigarettes. Larry ignored them and hugged the man. Barry froze in place, hands remaining between them, his back stiff under Larry's arms. I'm sorry, Larry whispered. For a lot of things, Larry squeezed him tighter. But most of all, I'm sorry I was a shitty friend. Barry finally broke free of the spell, pushing Larry away. What are you on about? Everything, Larry said, letting Barry put some distance between them. The man shook his head, mouth working soundlessly, hands shaking and shoulders rising and falling. I got you, Mr. Dyed. I got you. Oh, fuck off, Barry snapped, turning away, his back now quivering. Fucking asshole, Barry muttered, walking away. Did I just leave him speechless? Larry asked himself, a smile spreading across his face as he watched Barry disappear into the darkness. No waltzing or striding this time. No, this time Barry's step was quick and uncertain, his hands clenching into fists, curses echoing in the restaurant. That was something, Anna muttered from behind him. Yes, it was. Barry the Merry had nothing to say. Leah shook her head. That's a first. The man stormed back into the room. You know what? Fuck you, Larry, he said, marching up to Larry. This is the second time today you tried pushing me away. This is the second time today you pretended that this, he pointed at the 2 of them, it is somehow not real. Fuck you for that. Larry blinked at the man. Now don't flatter your eyelashes at me, Barry poked his chest. You were never a shitty friend. Never. Sure, you can be mean or dismissive or in your own world, but who isn't? But you were there when it counted. You were there when it mattered. So stop with that. The man's hand wavered in the air as if it didn't know what to do. With that sorry shit, fucking asshole, do you need another hug? Larry asked. Barry's eyes narrowed, his lips pursed, nose flared, but he nodded. A tiny, imperceptible nod. Larry hugged him, and Barry hugged back. For a moment, the man crumpled in his hands, his whole body shaking. Then Barry pushed him away. Good, now back to your girl, he said, and stormed off. Leah chuckled, following him. In short, the period was so far like the present period. Dickens returned to his mind, and Larry smiled. The world had gone to shit, but barely changed. Fucking Dickens, he muttered. Tina and Marty walked out of the kitchen, carrying plates and glasses. Ready? Larry asked. Yes, it is, Janet said, carrying a steaming tray of burger patties in buns. Greg followed her with a salad in one hand and the fish fillet in the other. Finally, Anna said, I'm starving. We all are, Greg said. But the room lit up, sudden, alien. A phone's frantic buzzing shattered the dark. They all jumped, weapons trained at the table. A phone rang. Janet stumbled over herself, grabbing it. Franz, honey! Larry smiled, watching the tears of joy fill Janet's eyes. Then horror filled her face. Larry's stomach dropped. No? Where? Her voice quavered. Mike's? She sounded defeated. Shit, Larry thought. Don't know! Her voice cracked. You use again? Larry closed his eyes. The best of times had just ended. Chapter 6. The cost of fear. The first warm meal after the apocalypse started should have been a joyous affair. It should have been. Instead, an uneasy silence smothered them as the group stood around a table, steaming plates forgotten, eyes glued to crying Janet. No one moved. No one spoke as the woman cradled her phone. I should do something, Larry thought, glancing at grim faces. I should say something. But what? Now that was the question he had no answer to. Where was Barry when he was needed? The man could do one of his insane stunts, break the ice, and all would be so shocked and outraged that they would forget their troubles. Miss Havisham, Larry thought, shaking his head. Maybe it was better that the man wasn't here for this. Okay, people, he said, pulling out a chair. We can talk after we eat. Just, sit, all of you. That broke the dam. Janet, what happened? Anna asked. Franz, he... A sob cut her off. He used it again. Drugs? Anna asked. The woman nodded, sitting down, eyes still focused on the phone as if that held any answers. I'm sorry, Tina muttered. Me too, but we need to eat and decide, Larry said. Decide what? Greg asked. How to proceed? Larry grabbed a burger he shouldn't have. There is no decision to be made, Greg said, reaching out and gently squeezing her arm. I'm sorry, Janet, but drug users can't be trusted. She battered his hand away. Greg! Anna hissed. No, he is right, Tina whispered. I'm sorry, Janet, but he is right. Tina, Anna shook her head. An hour ago, he was saying the same about you. Hey, let's all take a moment, Larry began. I know, Tina nodded. I don't fully disagree with him on that point either. I'm no fighter. I did freeze. That's not the point, Anna said, hugging Janet. The point is... That is the point, Greg cut her off. The two of them are no fighters, but they gathered supplies, set up traps, texted, and cooked. And even still, the man sighed, sounding defeated. I don't think you are dead weight. I was just frustrated and scared. But this is insane. Junkies can't be trusted. He is not a junkie, Janet snapped, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it echoed in the room. He is just a lost boy. Who is? Barry asked, waltzing back into the room, holding 3 tool belts in his hands. Ready to craft and mine, he said, nodding. Leah laughed, and she was the only one. Franz, Larry said. He called and is not home. Oh? And he doesn't know where he is? It will be hard to find him then. Barry lifted the belts. Anyhow, who wants one? She wasn't literal, Marty said, sitting up. The boy is a user. Shit, Barry muttered, sitting down. Fuck him. What? Anna asked. Fuck him, Barry enunciated, as if she didn't understand him. We don't need him. Junkies are too volatile. You are the one to speak, Janet said, tears still streaming down her face. You are a psycho. Reliable, Barry pointed out. They are right, Marty said. Sorry, Janet. Okay, enough, Larry said, placing both hands on the table. We will eat, rest, and then go get Franz. Larry, Greg began. That's final, Larry pointed at him, glaring at the rest. Put yourselves in her shoes for a second. Don't have to, Leah said. I ran home to my cat. I can only imagine how you are feeling. Thank you, Janet whispered. But that puts us all in danger, Greg said. No more than anything else we have done. Larry looked at Janet. And you. He has one chance. One fuck up. I won't risk our lives for his highs. One fuck up and then fuck him. Barry grinned, taking the fish for himself. Bon appetit. We eat, plan, and then rest. Sleep if we can, and then... He glanced at the door. Got it? All eyes were on him as they gave imperceptible nods. Good, Larry said, leaning back. I'll take a belt. Barry grinned like a madman, nodding as if they just won the lottery. An uneasy silence settled over the group. as they ate their first real meal after the whole shit started, and yet none looked pleased. Except for Barry. Well, that was to be expected by now. And maybe it was the exhaustion, the constant danger and movement. But Larry never had a better burger in his life. The only thing missing? Fries. He would kill for some fries right about now, and a Coke. He almost tasted the sweet chemical pang of Coke on his tongue. Almost. But well, beggars can't be choosers. Larry finished the burger, gorged himself on some fresh tomatoes and cucumbers, and lastly, he ate a donut. Probably the last one he would ever eat, and Larry made it count. He took small bites, letting the fluffy dough and chocolate coating melt on his tongue. Greg glared at him as he stood. Marty followed suit, shaking his head as if disappointed. Janet watched them go, tears still in her eyes as she turned to Anna and hugged the woman. Tina watched the other two women, fear, pain, and shame warring on her face before she too stood, making her way to the bathroom. Barry tapped his shoulder, a cigarette in his hand. Larry nodded at the man, taking it. Leah stood, beckoning Anna and Janet to follow. They did, leaving Barry and Larry alone at the table, a fire burning between them. The two remained seated, smoke rising and swirling, filling the dark restaurant. "Did I make the right call?" Larry whispered. Barry shrugged. "Some help you are," Larry muttered. "There's nothing to help with," Barry said, his eyes closing. "If you think that's the smart play, we do that." Larry snorted, smoke burning his throat and nose. "What?" "Smarts had nothing to do with it," Larry stood up. "I'm dragging all of you across the city to get my dog. How could I expect her to abandon her son? Mighty will be more useful than a junkie. I honestly don't know." Larry took a long drag on the cigarette. "What if he barks at the wrong time?" "I know he will. Besides, I got your back no matter what you decide. If that is getting Franz, well..." Barry spread his hands wide. "We get Franzi the junkie boy." Larry clapped the man's shoulder and turned away. He needed to wash up and get some rest. They all did. He washed his hands and face, Dickens making an unwelcome return to his mind. But Larry ignored it, and not for long. He found a relatively clean and carpeted floor in one of the back rooms, if one ignored all the dust and the musty smell. He texted Anna, Barry, and others to let them know where he was, and then lay down on the rough carpet. Sleep didn't really creep in, nor did it overtake him. It slammed into him head first and dragged him down into the darkness. And from it shapes rose, faces of men and women he knew, faces of people he hadn't seen in ages, and lastly, the faces of his parents, both long dead, but not forgotten. His mom held a little puppy in her arms, Mighty, his biggest joy in life. The dog jumped down and rushed to him, tail wagging, tongue lolling, as happy as the morning sun. Larry crouched down, spreading his arms wide, and the dog jumped into his embrace. Larry toppled over under the weight of his now adult dog, his large black German shepherd, his Mighty, radiated heat and joy like a bonfire. Larry buried his hands and face in that thick black fur, absorbing its warmth, joy, and love, as if for the first time, or the last. The door squeaked, the carpet rustled, someone entered the room. Larry's eyes shot open, spear flashing forward at Anna's face. Larry pulled back, blinking at the woman, her head cocked, the white sheets in her hands swaying in invisible wind. Larry lowered the spear. Anna shook her head, getting to her knees, then lower. And before he knew it, she nestled into his arms and threw two white sheets over them. Her hair smelled of smoke and food, her body warm and tense. Larry threw one arm over her and pulled her closer, letting his eyes fall close again, letting himself dream of the only thing in the world he had left, even before the apocalypse. Mighty. The 30-minute nap felt like 6 hours, yet it passed in seconds, as Larry's eyes opened, staring directly into Anna's dirty hair, and he found himself not minding it. In fact, he could get used to this, a warm body to huddle up against. Though the floor wasn't the best bed choice, He felt it in his bones as he stood. They creaked just as his muscles shrieked. But well, time waits for no man. Neither do the zombies. Larry woke the rest, all but Tina, who held wakeful watch over them. He nodded at her, almost slapping himself for not even thinking about that. But well, he knew for the next time. The men and women got dressed, armed, and filed by the door, Larry at the point. He took a deep breath and slowly opened the door and peeking out. The streets were colder than when they had entered the restaurant. Or maybe that was just Larry's imagination. Or maybe it was the fact that he just woke up. But it didn't really matter. They needed to move. Streetlights illuminated an empty street, littered with abandoned cars, bags, body parts, and corpses. All signs of what they already knew. This was their city now. They stepped out one by one. Larry first, Barry second, of course, humming under his breath until Larry gave him the look. Anna and Leah walked close behind him. Greg, Marty, Tina, and Janet a few steps behind them, all clutching makeshift weapons and wearing reinforced jackets. The air felt alive in the worst way, like something breathing down the back of his neck. And the damned moans didn't help. "Stay close," Larry mouthed, "and quiet." Barry mimed zipping his lips and tossing the key. Larry didn't bother reacting. The man was impossible. The group moved down the cracked sidewalk, boots crunching on broken glass. A lonely taxi sat in the middle of the road, hazard lights blinking an eternal warning. Beyond it, abandoned storefronts and shuttered metal grates formed a steel graveyard. Somewhere far off, a dog barked. It echoed strangely in the empty city. Larry glanced inside the cab. A single bag rested inside. Larry gestured for Barry to take point and checked the car door. It clicked and swung open. Perfect. Larry scanned the inside of the car before reaching in. The bag was mostly useless. A wallet, a small flask, 2 lighters, and a set of car keys. Larry pocketed the lighters, eyeing the flask. It could be useful for disinfecting wounds or burning something, but it could also be a temptation. Fuck it. He grabbed it and rushed back to the others, retaking the point. Janet sniffled behind him, eyes still red from crying. Larry's chest tightened. "We're doing this for her," he reminded himself, "and for Franz, then back to me." The group crossed the road and entered Central Park. Trees rose around them like giants, throwing tall and menacing shadows left and right. A zombie could easily hide in one, so could people. That's why Larry and Barry chose it. A rhythmic scraping echoed from ahead. Shk, shk, shk. Everyone froze. "What is that?" Leah mouthed. Larry raised one hand, signaling them to stay still. Barry came up beside him, cigarette already in the corner of his mouth, unlit. Larry grabbed it and crushed it between his fingers. "Hey," Barry hissed. "Later," Larry mouthed. The scraping grew louder, slow, deliberate, like someone dragging something heavy over concrete. Larry moved around the trees, scanning the lit parts of the park. A zombie shambled in the middle of the park road, making its way to the zoo, hunched over something Larry couldn't see. Its spine protruded like jagged rocks. Its skin was bloated and gray. One arm hung broken and useless, swaying like a pendulum with every movement, and slapping into the 3 zombies that followed. Shk, shk. It dragged a metal pole across the pavement. Not for any specific reason, just because it was caught under its remaining hand. Larry turned back, lifted 2 fingers, and pointed right. "Through the trees," he mouthed. Barry nodded, taking point and disappearing into the shadows. Larry waited for Tina to pass him, then took the rear, keeping his eyes fixed on the 4 zombies. How come they were there and didn't follow the gunshot? Did the trees muffle the sound? Or maybe they followed the shots and stayed in the park after the shots stopped. Larry scowled. If the 4 were here, who knew how many others were? Shit, he thought, glancing right at 5th Avenue at the parked cars. Should we go back? Tina stopped, and Larry almost ran into her. He looked over her head at the rest. They all stood frozen, looking at Barry's raised arm. What now? Larry rushed around them, reaching Barry. Blood in his veins froze. 7 zombies crouched on the floor, huddling together as they tore into someone. Thick red blood flowed between their legs as they munched on fresh meat. Bones crunched loudly. "Oh, fuck me sideways," Barry breathed, pointing to the left. Larry followed the man's finger and felt his stomach drop. Another group of maybe 6 zombies gorged on another body. One literally tore the dead woman's arm off, and blood dripped down its pale face as it tore skin and meat off with its teeth. Larry stared at them for a moment longer, his brain trying and failing to comprehend what he was seeing. Trying and failing to understand how 13 zombies were just there, in front of him. "Move," Larry told himself, pointing right at 5th Avenue, and took point, leading them back into the open street. So much for their plan, Larry thought. Crouching next to a parked bus, eyes scanning the street. This one, at least, was empty. The gunfire drew all the undead beasts, but they would still have to be cautious. One wrong move and the 13 zombies would be on them. One wrong move and they were dead. Larry left the cover, weaving between the cars and dead men, women, and children, glancing left and right, making sure nothing was coming at them. They passed a pharmacy. The glass had been punched inward. The shelves were overturned. A dark smear of something brown trailed from the register to the aisle. Greg slowed, staring at it too long. Barry nudged him and whispered, "Chocolate syrup. Gotta be." Greg didn't respond. The man finally moved, his eyes still fixed on the dried blood. Larry led them around an overturned car to the intersection of 5th Avenue and 67th Street, and their luck ran out. He leaned around the corner only to see another 5 zombies swaying in the street. Dead eyes turned directly to them. Larry pulled back, listening for the moans to turn to growls, the shambles to sprints. They didn't, and still, the group couldn't cross that intersection. Not with the 5 standing some 15 feet away, and no cars to use as cover, at least not for the whole way. Larry sat on his haunches, studying their surroundings. 6 parked and overturned cars. Yet only one was in the intersection. A dark park brimming with zombies on one side, and a lit street full of them on the other. And they were smack dab in the middle of it, with little to no options. They had to get to the other side of the park, to the intersection of Columbus Avenue and 106th Street, to Mike's apartment. Is Franz worth it? Larry thought, glancing at Janet. No, he was not, at least not to him. Then again, the rest probably thought the same about Mighty. But I didn't force them to come. Shit, he didn't even want them to come. More people meant more worries. Barry, Anna, and he would have been more than enough. No dead weight, Larry thought, looking up at the 7 bronze men in front of him, and the 107th Infantry Memorial glared back down on him, judging him. Those men went into the meat grinder that was World War I, to fight and die on another continent, protecting people they didn't know, nor would they ever meet. Fuck. Larry took a deep breath, calming his nerves and regaining his composure. They were in this together, and Janet needed them to save her son. "You good?" Barry asked, turning his thumb up as if it were a scale. That was a dumb question, Larry scowled, stopping his thumb 3/4 down. Barry pursed his lips, nodding, as if that was acceptable. "Next move?" Greg mouthed. "Around it," Larry pointed at the 107th Infantry Memorial, "and try through the park." "To the playground?" Barry's eyebrows danced. Larry ignored the man and stood. "Let's go." Larry led them back into the park, taking the little walkway next to the memorial. They crouch-ran, passing bloody clothes, bags, and strollers, as well as ravaged bodies and torn-off limbs. And worst of all, Larry saw a half-eaten baby, abandoned on a bench. Jesus, he thought, forcing his eyes back to the road and the abandoned gardener's cart. Blood smearing its side. Barry sped up, grinning like a fool. He glanced left and right, before almost throwing himself into the cart. Larry and the rest followed more slowly, carefully, as the man rummaged through, grinning like a schoolboy. He pulled out a large utility knife. maybe 8 inches long. The man unsheathed it, and the blade glinted in the streetlight. One side serrated, the other straight. "Fuck yeah," he mouthed, putting the blade back and attaching it to his belt. Larry ignored the man studying their surroundings. The wind carried a single low moan through the leaves, and he couldn't pinpoint its origins. However, it was only one, and as long as they were alert and ready, a single zombie wouldn't cause too much trouble. Or would it? Larry thought, rubbing his right arm, where he still felt the zombie's teeth through the magazine, where his bone and muscle still throbbed and burned. He saw it even now, the thing's craned neck as it tried ripping into Marty. Need to think things better through, he thought. Eyes focused on the shadows. And there he saw it. A single zombie lying on its stomach, its back twisted awkwardly and its left arm missing. Could that be the arm they saw? Anna tapped his shoulder with a first aid kit and zip ties. Zip ties? Larry glanced at the white plastic, then back up at her, a question mark on his face. She leaned in, her breath warm on his neck and ear. "Barry sent it," she whispered. "You will know what to do." Goosebumps ran up and down his neck and back, causing his hair to stand on end. Larry took it, trying to hide his reaction, but it was futile. She saw it, and she liked it. Her eyebrows rose and her smile turned knowing. Larry sighed, feeling his own smile grow. She had him, and she knew it. But then again, he had her, and he knew it. What a time to fall in love. Larry glanced at her, then back at the zombie. She followed his gaze, and her smile disappeared. "To leave it or kill it?" he mouthed at her. "Leave it," she mouthed back. Larry leaned in, whispering in her ear. "My thoughts, exactly." She shuddered a bit and pushed him away, half grimacing, half smiling. Oh, he had her all right. But now was not the time. Or well, it probably would never be the time again. They would make time. He knew they would. Larry turned to Barry and the others, only to see Janet and Tina holding large gardening hoes. Janet had a pointed hoe, and Tina a 2-prong hoe. Good weapons, he thought, regretting he hadn't stopped to look. But he shouldn't have. Barry waltzed over, carrying loppers and another utility knife. Larry took the knife, looking at the gigantic loppers. "What's with that?" Larry asked. "To cut?" Barry mouthed back. Larry let it go, checking the knife. Good grip, serrated backside, and a curved tip. "Thanks," Larry muttered under his breath. Barry shrugged, a manic smile on his lips and eyes glued to Tina. Larry followed the man's gaze. The woman stood to the side, swinging her 2-pronged hoe to test its weight and speed. A smart thing to do, in Larry's opinion, but Barry saw it differently. "What?" Larry mouthed. "She is and has a dual-action hoe," he whispered and snorted. Larry clapped a hand over his mouth and nose as laughter burst out. He squeezed his nostrils shut, trying and failing not to laugh. He turned away from the woman and Barry, forcing himself to breathe. A zombie growled. Laughter died in his throat. Larry stood up straight, scanning the park, but saw nothing. His eyes drifted to the broken one he had seen. It snarled and growled, jaws snapping as it used its one good arm to drag itself across the dirt, trying to get to them. "Move," Larry mouthed, lifting a hand. Their little pit stop could turn into a bloodbath quite quickly. "No," Barry whispered, pointing at the zombie. "What?" Larry whispered back. "Let Tina and Janet kill it," the man whispered, looking at the 2 women. They both moved a few steps back, away from the thing. They need to overcome that fear. "I agree," Greg whispered from the side. Larry watched them recoil from the broken and all but dead zombie, their new weapons forgotten. Shit, Barry was right. "You are with me?" he told the man and made his way over to the 2 women. "Tina, Janet," he whispered, and the sound of his voice startled them. They backed away from him too. "You need to kill it." "To what?" Tina asked, not whispered, asked. The thing growled again. "Keep your voice down," Larry hissed. "Go kill it. Barry and I will come along to observe." The woman looked at the other, then at him, her head shaking. "You need to overcome that fear," Barry whispered, but his tone was harsh. "Or else you will die." The thing snarled, blood dripping from its lips as it dragged itself across the dirt. Janet stared at it like a deer into headlights, then shook her head. "How will you save Franz?" Larry asked, and the woman's face changed, from fear to terror. "Go," he ordered. She nodded uncertainly, her grip on the hoe tightening. Tina followed, glancing at the thing, then back at them. The zombie snarled and growled. Another one responded, distant and muffled but unmistakable. The two women froze again, and Larry pushed them on. "Now," he hissed, turning to scan the park. The growl came from the left, somewhere behind the rocks. Another one broke the night, closer and from the street ahead. "Fuck," Larry cursed, gesturing to the rest to stay alert. Tina lifted her hoe high, inching forward. The thing lurched forward and she backed away, swinging it down. Missed. The prongs slammed against the concrete. The dull thump cracked the silence like a gunshot. The sound reverberated through the park. Growls rose in response. Barry stepped around the two, ready to kill it. But Janet swung. The pointed end of the hoe tore through flesh and skull, splattering the thing's brains across the pavement. She stood frozen over the dead zombie, hands and back shaking, but she did it. Too late. A zombie crested the rocks, head snapping left and right as it slowed. It stood there for a second, sniffing the air and looking around. Its eyes landed on Larry. Bloodshot, wide, and wild. It charged. Larry took a step forward, ready to meet it. Then another crested the rocks. "The playground," Barry said from behind, and they ran, all but Janet. The woman still stood, frozen in place. Greg grabbed her and pulled her along. Larry let the man take care of her, rushing around the group and taking point. Good that he did. Two kid zombies stumbled out of the trees and charged. His spear met one's head, and Barry's the other one's. But that was just the beginning of their troubles. More growls rose from the right, from the street, and Larry could hear them running. The five had heard them. They needed to put more distance between themselves and the noise they heard. They needed to go left, into the park, and hide. A zombie burst out of the trees, left of them. Then another followed. Marty and Anna rushed to meet them, giving Larry a moment to think, a second to orient himself. He scanned the playground, the swings, the slide, the pergola, and the steps. Larry's head snapped back to the wooden pergola. High off the ground, far from anything else. Safety. "To the pergola!" he shouted just as Anna killed a zombie. "Now!" He knelt, interweaving his fingers. Janet and Tina stared at him. "Go!" Janet stepped into his arms, and he boosted her up. The woman was so light he almost threw her bodily. She grabbed the beam and dangled for a second. Larry shoved her from below, helping her climb. Barry dropped next to him, boosting Tina. She grabbed the beams and Janet pulled her up. The two from behind reached them, bursting from the bushes, jaws bloody and open. Marty beelined for them as Larry boosted Anna up. "You next," Larry told Barry, and the man opened his mouth to argue. "Now!" Larry snarled, eyes focused on the bronze men and the street behind them, ears listening to the running steps on the concrete. Barry snarled something incoherent back, but he was already sprinting. The man's foot landed in Larry's hands, and he heaved. Barry flew upwards, grabbed the beams, and pulled himself up, dropping his spear. Larry threw both spears upwards, and the first of 5 gray-skinned, blood-covered figures stumbled through the far trees. Their eyes met. The zombie charged. "Come on!" Barry shouted, reaching down. Larry turned to Marty and Greg, getting down on one knee again. "Go, go!" Marty ran and jumped. Larry swung the man up and dropped back down, but Greg ran past him. "No!" Larry shouted, and could do nothing but watch as Greg's spear punched through the first head. The man dropped it, his hammer swinging. The third one sank its teeth into the man's hand. Blood exploded into the night air. Greg ripped his hand out of its jaws and headbutted the thing. "Larry, behind you!" Anna shouted, and Larry saw 3 more zombies crest the boulder. "Larry now!" Barry shouted, extending his hand. Larry took 2 steps back, glanced at Greg, and ran. He jumped, trying to grab the beam. He got nothing but air. He felt his momentum shift, and he felt gravity pressing against his shoulders, pulling him down. "Fuck!" his mind screamed. 2 sets of hands grabbed him. Barry and Marty grunted as they pulled him up. He flopped on the beams, eyes glued to Greg as the man fought for his life. Well, his death. He had already been bitten, but he refused to go down for all of 3 stubborn seconds. His hammer arched high and missed, tearing into a zombie's shoulder, and the thing tackled him. Greg's legs left the dirt-packed floor just as the others joined, and he disappeared under them. They swarmed him like ants, ripping into him and tearing him apart. And yet the man remained silent. He didn't cry, scream, or call out. He died silently, despite the violence. Tina sobbed next to him. Larry ignored her. He couldn't even look at her at the moment, nor could he look away from the feeding frenzy. Oh, he wanted to, desperately. But Greg deserved his full attention. In the end, he had been right. Tina and Janet had killed them. Or, well, him. He wanted to scream, shout, curse the stupid women out, push them down so they would know true fear. Larry pinched himself and took a deep breath, forcing his heart and trembling hands to still. Janet, in the end, did manage to overcome her fear. She froze after True, but only after. And now, silent tears ran down her face as she watched Greg being devoured. Another zombie stumbled into the playground, dragging its right leg behind it. The thing's ankle was destroyed, and yet it stumbled on, going straight for them. Larry watched it approach, slow and clumsy. He heard it growl and snarl as it reached the pergola, bloody and broken fingers reaching up towards them. He twisted and stabbed down. The screwdrivers pierced its skull, and the thing fell backward. Barry grunted. "What?" Anna whispered. "That was an easy kill," he muttered. "No, it wasn't," Larry said, eyes turning back to the feasting mass of undead. 5 in total again. "This," he gestured to Greg's death. "This happened because we got cocky." "What do you mean?" Marty asked. "We saw them feed." Larry gestured right to the far-off and unseen zombies. "We saw those linger in the street, and still we fucked around like idiots." His voice snapped. 5 undead heads snapped in unison, turning to him. They growled and bolted at them. Tina squeaked. "And that didn't help," he snarled at her. "All you had to do was kill one barely moving zombie." He punctuated his words with a stab. A screwdriver pierced its eye. The zombie jerked one last time and toppled over. "I got scared," she said. "Enough with that," Larry said. "Next time, we are leaving you behind." "Larry?" Anna said. "What?" He turned on her. "What, Anna? Did Greg have to die? Did he really need to?" "No, but—" "No buts. We are all scared." Shit, Greg was terrified, and he still threw himself at them to save us. "Damn, Larry," Barry said, half laughing. "I thought I was the cold one." "I'm not cold. I'm not harsh," Larry said. "I'm just tired and scared and lost like all of us. We all need to get our shit together. Greg's death is on all of us." Marty grunted, killing another one. "But it's mostly on your head," he told the woman. "Get a grip now, there is no later." Tina stared at him, then down at the last zombie, tears still in her eyes. "You are right," she muttered, and slipped down from the beam. Larry felt his stomach drop. His hand grabbed the utility knife. His body moved, propelled by instinct. Tina hit the ground hard. The zombie was on top of her. Larry landed on its back a second later, driving the knife into its head. The body and he crashed at Tina's feet, and the woman, for once, didn't yelp or scream or cry. She just stood there, dumbfounded, as Larry glared at her. "Stupid girl," he thought, slowly getting up. "What were you thinking?" Tina spat out incoherent sounds. Barry dropped next to him, holding 2 spears. "You don't get to kill yourself," he said, taking the proffered spear. "You don't get to escape your guilt." "Lower your voice," the man whispered. "We are still outside." Larry took a deep breath and nodded, eyes never leaving Tina. "If you want to die, die saving Barry, Anna, me, or Franz. Got it?" She trembled under his onslaught. "Got it?" He enunciated each word, and she nodded slightly. And she nodded slightly. "Good. Get ready to move. We have to put some distance between us and this mess," he whispered, walking towards Greg's body, or what was left of him. The man's ribcage was torn open, his arm and leg ripped off, and half his face was eaten. His blood drenched the earth he rested on. Larry knelt next to the man, his one remaining eye staring into nothingness. "You were right," he whispered and stabbed down. The screwdrivers punched through the man's skull. "I'm sorry," Larry said, standing, turning to the rest of his group. "Move out." You've just listened to The Collapse Dead Run, Part 2, the Larry and Barry saga, and the first long-form arc in The Collapse. I release new stories twice a week, with The Collapse pulling double duty over the next few weeks. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like, subscribe, and dive deeper into The Collapse. And be sure to check out Those Who Didn't Make It, a zombie anthology. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.